What positive impacts do you think will come from COVID-19? As a legally blind person who's been frustrated for years about job prospects and finding something where I don't have to commute, COVID has been a godsend. Food delivery is great too. The downside is the increased cost of these items factoring in the cost of delivery. I guess if I'm not paying for any car ownership expenses it probably balances out. Organizations with abysmally slow internet connections that have not been updated in decades will do so in order to support video conferencing. Best answer I've seen so far. More help for people with disabilities. Online ordering, grocery delivery, food delivery. It's been nice. Saves me energy when I can make an order for something and do a contactless pickup and they just put it in my car when I drive up. Not everyone has energy to spare for simple things like groceries or errands. I'm just about to start my first proper job and I suffer from anxiety and depression. I sometimes have days where I can't face having to deal with other people and the thought of having to go outside makes me cry, but I can still focus. I'm looking forward to being able to say to my boss I can't come into work today. I'm not well enough, but I can work from home. I tried to do this before with an old boss. A couple of years ago, I asked permission to work from home because I'm feeling sick, but not too sick not to work. I was told, no, you're sick, then you're sick. There's no in between. Okay, I was just trying to be a good employee and work if I can, even if I'm feeling a little blue, so I just used my SL. Now I have anxiety thinking that we'll eventually be forced to go back to the office. I'm in the same situation. If we charge sick time, it has to be for the full 8-hour workday, even though I'm perfectly able to work for at least a few hours. Back in the old days my new manager banned working from home, so I just called in sick and took a day off, which was bliss. Now there is no calling in sick, just working from home. This is the scenario I worry about. I worry that I'm going to feel like absolute dog shit one day, but still be expected to work from home. I lost 30 pounds dealing with the anxiety of not knowing when we would be forced back into the office. Turned out it happened under what I considered would be worst case scenario: no mask rules that are actually enforced, no WFH/office time split, and to boot our ventilation system has been broken and not repaired. Yet so I'm sitting in still air all day. It's awful and I'm looking for a remote job. I have found this as well. Before COVID I was fighting with my boss to allow me to work from home, and she kept claiming one of the directors was against it. Now thanks to COVID I've been working from home for 5 months. I feel much more productive at home. The company I work for was adamantly against working from home. They knew employees did it on occasion, but the stance was you need to be here. I think it had something to do with the very fancy office building they pay for, but they always claimed it was for productivity. COVID hits, everyone telecommutes, and productivity goes up literally 300%. When they do reopen the office they are starting a remote work program. This will be the hardest thing for me to go back to. I've proven to my organization already that I can do a great job from home, so I'm really curious to hear what excuse they'll have to warrant making me go back into the office to do that same work. For my company it's going to be security reasons, which is basically BULL*SHIT, because if we as a company can move tens of thousands of employees worldwide to their homes and not have a single issue, then us staying at home shouldn't be a problem either. There was a time when people didn't wash their hands at all, pandemic or no. I think we made some progress before COVID. True, but I give that credit to Isaiah Rogers, inventor of indoor plumbing, and Joseph Lister for hand washing. They cut through the BS when no one believed them, and now we reap the benefits. As has happened with science countless times throughout the ages, I do think hand washing trends with education, which has also been drifting up globally, just not fast enough for my liking. Don't forget the OG scientist that pushed for hand washing, Ignaz Semmelweis. Poor dude was considered insane and ridiculed in the medical community for trying to get people, specifically doctors, to wash their hands. It took about 20 years before Lister came and advocated for hand washing. I'm hoping that bathrooms in restaurants will become completely hands-free. I hate that the pull side of the door is on the inside, and usually there's no paper towel dispensers anymore to use as a glove to touch the sink/door handles. I vote for more foot pedal controlled faucets and toilets, because these motion sensors that never work make me question if I'm a ghost roaming the earth. I work at a government hospital, and even after COVID, whenever that might be, they want up to 40% of visits to be virtual. Before the pandemic I had put in proposals just to work 1 day a week at home, and they were always denied. Because of COVID we got our proposals permanently approved, all the tech we need to work from home, and tons more server power to complete the virtual visits. It was the push we needed to create more options for patients. More employers might realize that jobs can be done remotely, allowing more flexibility. More work from home positions might open up. Indeed, office space is extremely expensive, and at this point they'll likely realize how much money they're wasting, money that could be going back into the business. If there's any positive economic connotations to this FUBA, it is this, and the further rise in tech. And this has the side effect, positive for most who may want to start a business, of lowering commercial real estate costs. Rents gotta go down. Expect a lot of commercial to residential conversions in the coming years as lease events come up, and companies opt to shrink their real estate footprint. Source: construction project manager currently running a program management office for a publicly traded company. My company just spent a ton on their own office tower. I knew it was a bad idea from the start. Sure, it's a big company and can afford it, but that money cold gone elsewhere. My grandparents always taught me, if you can afford rice, eat congee. As in, you could eat rice for a week, or you could stretch it out and eat congee, rice porridge, for 2 weeks. It may be less luxurious, but your stomach is equally sated, and you just saved half your money. Our office of 3,000 has been working at home at the same level of productivity since March, and we are staying remote at least until the new year. They mentioned in an online town hall that a lot of our positions may never go back to an office setting, at least not full time. I think it's great. I love working from home. This is naive. They are likely to realize that jobs can be done by anyone anywhere in the world, so why not just employ someone from a country with the lowest possible employment costs? Just remember what motivates those who make money from your labor. This is exactly what will happen. What happened to manufacturing jobs will happen to many white-collar jobs. I mean, yes, it will happen. But it also means anyone in the world can compete for that job, and most likely for significantly cheaper pay. I think people are going to be a lot more conscious of germs and just public surfaces in general. I know for me it's something I think about constantly now. I used to be quite germophobic. During my time at uni I was working on it, and by the end I felt free from constant need to wash my hands and feeling of having my hand plagued by bacteria. To then have the rest of the world turn very concerned with germs, it makes me feel strange, because I certainly don't want my old mindset back. Yes, it left me no choice, but I had to publicly shame a grown-ass tourist man in front of his family for pulling down his face mask and purposefully sneeze on product, while everyone and myself were doing their shopping and following protocol. Drive-in movies making a comeback. Yes, agreed. I hadn't been to a drive-in since the 90s, and thankfully they started popping up again here in California, so I was able to watch New Mutants and a bunch of classic actions movies this summer. My friends have been living that the cinemas have been showing heaps of old movies because new movies aren't being made. They want a bit of that to keep going. Hygiene. I'm usually sick all the time, but I haven't been sick a day since lockdown. We've been opened back up for months now with social distancing and extra hygiene measures in place everywhere. It's stunning. My kids haven't been sick either. It's like a miracle. Who knew people's gross hands and spittle was impacting my life so much? That actually explains why I haven't been sick since January. I usually get sick around June and September like clockwork, but I feel fine. Same. My kids brought home every bug that was going around their school. we always washed their hands when they got home from school, but I'm sure they didn't wash their hands at all during school. We haven't been sick since schools closed, and it has been amazing. We had preemies in June, and it was comforting knowing that they wouldn't get sick as soon as we brought them home, because kids weren't in school. I have started seeing family more regularly online playing games I had no idea about. Jackbox Point TV. It's been fun and never would have happened without the pandemic. Plus older family members are bored and want to talk for literally an hour about mundane stuff. I've learned a lot about them that I'd never known my whole life. Plus my dogs get a ton more exercise and I've saved money not going out, plus I'm eating healthier with my own cooking. I think a lot of people are realizing how terrible some of their relationships have been, whether it be with employers, spouses, family, etc. And I think a lot of people are just taking a lot less shit from people. I also think so many have revisited past hobbies, or taken up new ones, or truly became reacquainted with feeling at home in their homes. I think both these things will result in a lot of people just slowing down and reassessing what or who is worth keeping around in life. I know that's certainly been the case for me. I also think a large number of people who have experienced working from home will now refuse to make commuting a part of their workday, which will eventually lead to a lot of changes to how we work. This may eventually lead to changes to housing prices in different areas, etc. Totally agree. For the past 6 months I have been rethinking some friendships and I realized that many of them existed just out of pure convenience and were not healthy at all. I've had much more time to myself to think and reconsider, and I made a much needed friend list cleanse on all the social media, and it made me feel much more satisfied with myself and much calmer and happier in general. Yeah, it was actually quite interesting seeing all the news of divorce rates in Japan skyrocketing when they went into a major quarantine. Couples that had been happily married for years and years have their relationships detonate because apparently the secret to their happy marriage was never seeing one another. I asked this question to my teenage students and many of them said that they now appreciate their families a lot more. They feel closer to their parents now, who are working from home or not on regular business trips. The realization of these relationships has led to more loneliness for me. Close friends have turned out to be terrible at keeping in touch without face-to-face hangouts. I'll always have my cats at least. I brought home my card collection from my parents' place. Lots of memories flowing back, and I can now share them with my eldest son, since he can read and has a keen interest in card games. It's been a great time to connect with the kids, since we are stuck at home more. So many people are going to be seeking mental health support. In my personal experience I have been suffering with social anxiety and bottling up my feelings. I could never bring it up to my doctor because I was so afraid of crying and making a fool of myself. Now that phone and video doctor sessions are available and encouraged, I was able to talk to someone without fear of crying in public. I'm now going to therapy and in the process of being diagnosed with anxiety. I'm sure there are many stories like mine out there. Just figured I'd add, if anyone needs to hear it, that you are never alone. It's so hard at first to reach out for help, but it is so worth it. On a similar note, I think a lot of people are having their first experiences with mental illness due to the isolation and fear. I'm really hoping that people will be more understanding of others who have depression and anxiety going forward. Sociologically, I hope we see paid sick days become normal in the US. Scientifically, I hope we can learn from this to develop good vaccines for a bunch of other existing diseases that have eluded us so far. In Australia we have paid sick leave, but we don't use them when sick. We keep them for nice days and chuck a sickie and go to the beach. I normally get sick with colds and other upper respiratory infections an average of 1.5 times a season. Spring and summer went without me getting sick. It could be the quarantining, but I think masks do make a difference. In hopping it becomes culturally acceptable to wear masks similarly to how normal it is in parts of Asia. People might prefer working from home, which means more jobs and flexibility for businesses. It would be kinda similar to day and night shifts, if you know what I mean.